More than 250 picket lines will be set up across the country starting today as the largest public service strike in Canadian history is now underway.
We will remain on strike until the government addresses our key issues at the bargaining table.
155,000 Public Service Alliance of Canada employees are off the job after last-minute negotiations last night failed. With more on how this could affect everything from taxes to trades, we are joined by Sarah Ritchie with the Canadian Press. Good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
So, Sarah, as of 12:01 this morning, members of Canada's largest public service union, we know, walked off the job, and those workers include Coast Guard Search and Rescue, teachers, firefighters, Canada Revenue Agency employees, as well as workers who process employment insurance, passport applications, and immigration documents. A lot of people here. Where and when will we start to feel the impact of all of this?
So I think the government's been pretty clear that the impact will be very widespread across the country and across, like you mentioned, all sorts of different sectors. I think it's really important to note that essential services are going to continue. So when you say Coast Guard Search and Rescue will be affected, like the very fundamental search and rescue aspects are expected to continue in some capacity, but it's mostly things like communicating with the government. So for us in the media, media relations folks are mostly on strike at this point, which makes it a little bit tricky to reach people. So trying to get passports processed and immigration applications, those things will really slow down. Passports will only be processed for really urgent cases. You know, Global Affairs Canada will maintain some services for Canadians abroad, but it's really going to pull back on what it can do because, of course, it won't have very many staff. So the effects should be pretty much widespread across government. You know, PSAC said yesterday, the union said yesterday that it expects tax season to grind to a halt.
Yeah, we spoke with Chris Aylward last week, and work conditions, wages were the main issues that were keeping the two sides apart. What was the breaking point in the negotiations?
You know, there was a breaking point a long time ago, actually. These negotiations started in June 2021, and it was May 2022, so almost a year ago, that things hit an impasse. The union, you know, has been back at the table with the government trying to work out some sort of a deal for the last little while, but it just seems like they're pretty far apart on some critical issues. Not only the wages, you mentioned earlier in the show that there was, you know, different numbers being offered by either side or desired by either side, but there's also issues like remote work, which the union, ever since the pandemic, has been really keen to get this into the contract so that the government needs to, you know, sort of honor things and can't just change the process midway through. We saw in December, Treasury Board President Mona Fortier announced that workers would be going back to the office 2 to 3 days per week. And the union was really upset about this because this is something they feel should be negotiated and put in the contract, and the government doesn't feel that way. So things like that have become really critical sticking points. And I think without movement on either side, we see the situation that we're in today.
Well, and we're just going to start feeling the effects of that as of today. But as this carries on, you know, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was asked and said he will not support any Liberal back to work legislation. Do you think the government will try to enforce that down the road?
They've been pretty quiet about that. I think that they are going to, for optics' sake, try to avoid that for sure. That's a pretty extreme measure for a government to take. They did say in their statement yesterday that, you know, they respect the right to strike, but then they also couched that with a caveat that, you know, it should be a last resort. So I'm not really sure where they're at in terms of how they feel negotiations have been going. It seems like they've been stalled for quite some time. But yeah, we'll see Jagmeet Singh, you know, and the NDP standing in solidarity with PSAC today. We expect to see Jagmeet out on the picket lines at West Block, and I think there will be a lot of pressure on the government to, you know, try to make a deal and make a deal quickly.
Speaking of picket lines, where can we expect to see those?
Oh boy, everywhere it seems like. So here in Ottawa, like I mentioned, there will be a big one at West Block on Parliament Hill. There's also expected to be a few more downtown. But the union has actually advertised, if you go to their website, there's 250 locations, and you could just pick a picket line close to you if that's something you're interested in checking out. But expect, you know, if there's a major government building or government office nearby you, expect that there will probably be picket lines somewhere nearby.
Sarah Ritchie, best of luck to you as you try to navigate the strike, because I know it does, in fact, affect how you do your job effectively. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.